This special film of the Maine Hospice Council and Center for End-of-Life Care discusses the Maine State Prison Hospice Program with interviews from the 2017 annual conference. The program provides unique opportunities for inmates to engage in 150 hours of comprehensive training, followed by weekly continuing education classes. The Hospice Volunteers assist the professional staff to improve the dignity and quality of life for men who die while incarcerated, so that no man will die alone. The 18-year collaborative partnership between the Maine Department of Corrections, Maine State Prison, and the Maine Hospice Council has allowed this unique program to grow and thrive.
Welcome to this special show of the Maine Hospice Council. My name is Steve Raymond, and today we are filming at the Maine State Prison in Warden. We are going to be in conversation with Warden Randall and Executive Director for the Hospice Council, Kandyce Powell. We're going to be talking about the Hospice Volunteer Training Program that has been operating within the Maine State Prison system for many years. Kandyce, Warden Liberty, thank you for taking the time to talk to us about this extraordinary program. So if I can begin with Kandyce. Kandyce, 18 years ago now?
18 years ago, yes.
So I'm intensely curious, how did you originally conceive of this program? What started this idea?
Great question. The Maine Hospice Council's, one of their hallmarks is really to reach out to the underserved and disenfranchised who are not receiving access to good quality end-of-life care. Mm-hmm. And we've worked with many populations, and it's been rich and rewarding work. And when I did some homework to take a look at how men and women were dying while incarcerated, it gave me pause and a lot of concern. So I brought some data to the board and took a look at the history of incarceration in this country and in the state, and made a phone call to the warden, the then warden. It wasn't Warden Liberty, it was Warden Merrill, Jeff Merrill, and presented a proposal. Our board accepted it. It was consistent with our mission. It was work that needed some attention. Warden Merrill was very gracious, convened a meeting with core staff, and away we went.
Wow, so all just that easy.
Well, no.
You had some challenges along the way, I'm sure.
But process is everything.
Process is everything.
It is, and doing your homework and making sure you present yourself in a very credible way. We have a long track record of quality programming and collaborative programming. And I love when Warden Liberty and I met, you know, that was another potential for collaboration. We met before the warden was warden here.
Right.
Yep, collaboration. You know, none of us can go through life with our programming without the support and involvement of others, because our communities, our patients, our families, especially in healthcare, are depending on us to do that. And we've fallen short sometimes. So we love collaborative programming and bringing interested parties into
So in addition to process is everything, you'd say partnership is everything.
No, it certainly is. It certainly is, yeah.
Right. Well, Warden Liberty, so I had the privilege of coming to one of the classes with the men, and or two of the classes, and then the conference. And frankly, I was just really completely astounded, emotionally moved, so impressed with your speech at the conference. And can you give us your perspective on the program that's here working in
Sure. I was first introduced a few years ago before I came here when I was sheriff of Kennebec County, and Kandyce asked me to speak at one of the conferences, and it amazed me too, the transformation of the men and the caring, compassion, and the humanity of the program. You know, Kandyce is much more than leader of this program. She really mentors the men, and it really amazing. And for individuals to be incarcerated here, and today in 2018 we have more than 1,000 inmates here, and it's their own community. And I see the hospice program as an essential part of that community. I've been in law enforcement for 35 years, both corrections and law enforcement itself, and I knew many of these individuals on the street, and you know, at their worst, probably difficult times in their lives, and I've seen significant transformation of these men. Two things: University of Maine at Augusta and hospice, and just amazes me. And that's a story I tell over and over to anyone that I tour here or any place I speak. I talk about the transformational power of the hospice program here at the prison.
Yeah, and I know, because I've heard you speak, you hold as a core belief in the possibility of redemption for men, and that's your mission here.
That's correct. If we don't believe in redemption, I think we're all damned.
Right.
And so we all seek to be redeemed, and I think the same for the men here. And I've seen redemption and transformation here at the prison, and in a large part because of the work they do with hospice.
Right, and just to acknowledge it also, you mentioned that, so you have the University of Maine offering classes here for men as
That's
well.
correct. So we have 5 or 6 classes going at any given time, and we know that individuals that are involved in the hospice program at the University of Maine at Augusta, they don't come back. They don't recidivate. Their lives have broadened, and they don't return. So these are really critically key programs here at the prison, and we couldn't do it without the collaboration of Kandyce and the Hospice Council of Maine.
Right. So Kandyce, you've been coming here pretty much every Wednesday for all these years, 18
All these
years.
yes.
And which by itself is quite astounding. But so what are your goals when you're working with the men? What are you trying to create and establish with them?
Yeah, that's another great question. And if you were to ask the men, if the men were sitting here, they would say, for sure, their goal is to provide high-quality caring for men who are dealing with serious chronic illnesses, advanced frailty, and/or life-threatening illness in the infirmary. And that is their goal. That is, they don't want those men to be isolated and die alone, which used to happen years ago. When I first came here, I had a vision, yes, that was the goal, to improve the care at the end of life for men and not have them have to die alone. But I also had a little niggling that there was another goal here that I hoped would come to fruition, and that was when the warden mentions how important education is. Education and service to others, learning how to love other people and love yourself. And so it actually transforms lives, because some of these men here, most of who we are is learned behavior. And if we haven't learned how to love another or have self-confidence and care for ourselves, we can't possibly offer that to somebody else, right? So I thought, well, my goal, and some might call it a secondary goal, but it's a primary goal for me, and the vision for these men was to couple that with a new skill set for them, or tap into their skill set that was dormant and tease that out of them, and then couple that with the incredible learning that would take place for them, because I say to them, the course is 150 hours and then every Wednesday for the rest of your life. And so, they do exactly what you tell them when they're doing. They chuckle, and then they realize that that's true. And it's not that they are forced to come, they want to come.
Right.
Because they're learning, they're teasing, they love that phrase now. If you hear, they say similar words because they're meaningful to them. So that service to others has helped them plumb the depths of their own humanity and find that wonderful person that was in there. That exterior might be rough and tough, but inside there's a soft marshmallow center and a tenderness. And when you watch those men sit at the bedside and care for those gentlemen that are dying, it'll bring tears to your eyes. I mean, the warden knows. He's been in there watching the tenderness and the caring.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. And they also have a shared bond of that common cause and the shared experience. And that group is a very tight group. And they do wonderful work. They really do. And it is emotional. It's emotional for me. It's emotional for everyone. And at the end of life here in the prison, we sort of, stop the incarceration game, and we open up, expanded visits, and we do 24-hour vigils with them and give them the care and the humanity they deserve.
Yeah. So, Warden, help me understand this paradox. So, on the one hand, I think one would say that the Maine State Prison incarcerates some very dangerous men, men who have at least one time in society been dangerous.
Sure.
And now these men are exploring very vulnerable aspects of their own personalities in this group. I saw that. My personal background as a young man was as a registered nurse. I've worked in many clinical environments. It took me only 10 minutes to realize these guys are very much nurses. They're not just sitting there kind of comforting someone or sitting at the bedside. They're really hands in, heart in, mind in. So how does that fit within the overall system where not every other man here is exploring their vulnerabilities? Is it a positive, negative? How does it work?
It's amazing. You know, it's not only in here, but the exploration of their own vulnerabilities is unmatched on the outside from what I've seen too.
Right.
We're all caught up in our busy world, and rarely do we pause and explore internally the way that these men have, and I have never seen it. Is really tremendous. And you know, the reason why people here often are mental health, substance abuse, neglect, poverty, trauma, so there are a lot of reasons why people arrive here, and those are really the reasons they're here. So I don't judge, and the punishment is being separated from their families, loved ones, and losing their freedoms. And I know that, as I said, people that expand and grow educationally and internally, they don't come back. So that's one of the ways that I can keep the citizens of the state of Maine safe, by programming these individuals, exposing them to whatever we can to address those 5 primary reasons why they arrive here, and they won't come back.
I heard the men refer to what you're doing in the classes as helping them find their authentic selves.
Yes, right.
They use that language.
They do use that language. And it's so, I have to smile when I hear them use that language, because when I first met many of them, those words weren't part of their vocabulary.
Right.
But they've been given permission to explore themselves and do it in an environment that's so safe and trusting. When they come into class on Wednesday, they close that door and they know that's a safe space for them. They know that they can put anything on the table. They know that I believe that there's nothing that happens to any one of us that we can't use for a learning opportunity. And that is something that many of them have never learned before. Is there such a place that exists? Doesn't mean we agree on everything. That's not what it's about. It means that we learn to disagree without being disagreeable. And when they're learning those basic approaches and process pieces for life, we talk about reactions and responses. And I will give them words now those words might be simple. What's a reaction? Well, yeah, it's when somebody does something I don't like it, so I used to just punch them in the face or something. And I said, what's the difference in reaction and response? And so response elicits process conversation. So we just dive deep into a lot of these words. And in doing so, they touch places in themselves. When they refer to their authentic self, they don't mind talking to me about the good, the bad, and the things that they're not so proud of that happened to them. And a lot of them have shame that they're trying to deal with, and forgiveness that they're struggling with, and they know they can do that and talk about that, and some of them have never been able to do that with anybody before, without judgment, but with support. And that's just, it's thrilling for me to watch the results of that with them, and to listen to them use a lot of the words that we've used in class, and to do it genuinely, not to do it with a false sense of bravado or hey, look at what I've learned, but it just comes out of them almost like a fountain. And it's like it's been right there waiting for somebody to unlock that little gate and let it come out.
How do you witness that?
Very true, and I have a background as a soldier, and I see very many parallels from, soldiers to incarcerated individuals with a harder exterior. And when they both have endured trauma, there's no real healing that takes place until they really look inward and get into the depths of their emotions and process those things in a safe sort of a way. And so I've witnessed it there, and I witnessed it here, and it's just amazing work. It's real, it's legitimate, it's deep, it's moving for not only for them, but anyone that's around them to see that growth. And it's amazing to me, and I'm very thankful that they're here doing the work they're doing.
Yeah. So Warden Liberty, is this just feel-good stuff in terms of the prison, or does it also make administrative sense for you as a person running this whole huge operation? Does it make sense in other ways other than the personalities of the men evolving, which is fun?
Yeah, so far beyond the growth of the individuals that participate, it's very important for me that when someone's end of life, that they're treated humanely, and they don't pass alone, and they're comfortable, and they can pass with peace.
Yes.
And that's critically important. In a practical sense, the men also provide a whole lot of support to the nursing and medical staff during those times. So in a practical sense, that's good too. For me, it's the most important thing are two things: the growth of the men, and then the support of the passing individual.
Right.
It's really important that takes place, and it's amazing to see family members come to the infirmary the last couple of weeks of the individuals' lives, and they are so appreciative of the treatment that they receive, and they see the love amongst the men. And you don't hear the word love much, in prison. And thanks to Kandyce, she's introduced love into the prison. And, but you don't see that. But these men openly speak about the relationship they have with each other and with the individuals that are passing. And there's a lot of love in that room, and the family members appreciate it, the individuals that are passing appreciate it, and I appreciate it.
Right.
It softens the prison significantly.
Right.
When people can be real and talk about their feelings.
Yeah. I have a question, but I also want to just make the observation, because I'm thinking of it. I see that the men treat Kandyce with absolute deference and respect, and for her womanness and everything. There's doesn't even seem to be a molecule of any kind of question in that regard. You would say that. If you were sitting with having coffee with one of your colleagues at a conference, a few other wardens from other states, would you find this easy to justify to them that they might want to take a look at this for their own prisons?
Very easy.
Yeah.
I'm an enthusiastic proponent of hospice work in the facility. A critical piece of that is who's delivering the training, and as you can see, Kandyce is special in that she takes real depth in the process, and the value of the process, and spending time with the men, and sort of a life coach even, sort of with them.
Right.
And that's critically important to the program. It's not a typical program. None of the other programs really deal with the depth of emotion and compassion that the hospice program does, and very easy sale for me.
And so, Kandyce, if you were speaking to some of your professional colleagues from other states running their hospice councils, what would you tell them it takes to get something like this going? How would you get them started if they were interested?
Sure. Do your homework for what's going on with your institutions of incarceration in your state, but take a look at it in the broader context, so do your homework. But also develop a relationship with your local institution and the warden in this case, which is what worked well for me. I gotta say too, before I continue with that thought, that every warden that has been here has of course brought a different perspective and a personality, but has been so very supportive of this work, and I'm forever grateful. And Randy and I knew each other before he took the position here, and I was just most grateful because of his emotional intelligence and his approach to these issues just as a human being, who he is. And I knew for us that would just be an extra bonus to support the work we were doing, and I can't even begin to say enough about that.
Yeah.
So I would say find some collaborators. And yes, hospice is a model. Many of my colleagues and counterparts in other states are more trade association models. We've chosen an educational program model for our state hospice association. And we did that many years ago, and for good reason. And so I would suggest that when you invite partners, they must be, of course, have kind of some synergy with the mission here. And what we did is take a traditional hospice program and in all of its wonderful parts and pieces, and because our vision was a bit different, or my vision, I have to own that, yeah, was a bit different, the one I proposed to the council, that the personal growth piece of this, the life coach piece of this, to me, for the men in here, was going to be just as valuable as the skills learning that would help them provide the high quality care and caring for these men. So we did a modified version. It is a class about life, really. It is. The warden was absolutely correct. It's how to live, how to be all you can be, how to tease out those amazing, amazing talents and skills these men have just naturally. You know, and when I interview them, I said years ago, I just have different eyes and ears than the wonderful people that work here. They are here in a very secure facility. I come in bringing love and compassion into this environment, and if somebody were to ask me, how do I describe myself, I'd probably say 99% intuitive. And that's really how I do my work, wouldn't you say?
I would too.
Warden, yep. And I think for this environment and these men, that this has been just amazing. And so I would say to my colleagues in other states, this is a model that can work and work very effectively, but you've got to get the people who naturally adapt to that kind of a model. So it's not, you can't do a recipe without the right personalities to implement it. So that's fair statement?
It is fair.
Yeah. And and another thing I would say to them, you must have a lot of patience and perseverance.
To work with the system.
And dedication, because there are challenges all the time.
Many.
But the men learn so much from watching how I deal with those challenges.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, much more so than anything I could teach. If I was to sit down with them and teach them problem-solving skills, that's all well and good. But how they've learned is listening to how I work with people and watching how I handle some extremely challenging situations. Some days, years ago, I could have walked away easily and said, this is too stressful, I don't need this. But I didn't, because there was a far greater mission here, and that was to give these men a chance to become all they could be and do it through an end-of-life model, end-of-life coaching model.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know from talking with a few of the men how they described how different it was for them to learn the difference between reacting and responding, and to learn how to take a few deep breaths and step back, and where they once would have done something totally dysfunctional and destructive, they learn how to manage, and
They do.
deal with things.
Yeah.
Shockingly, we're already close to the end of the time we're trying to take here. Warden, do you have any concluding thoughts here? Anything else you want to throw out on the table?
I'd just like to say that I'm deeply appreciative of the work that Kandyce and the men do here. It's critical, it's important. I think that this can be replicated elsewhere, and it should be. As a society, as a nation, we need to pause and see how we're treating those individuals that are incarcerated and end of life. I think this is a good model to follow.
Thank you, sir. I've been so impressed with the enlightened vision that you bring to this.
Thank you.
It
My
really
honor.
broke every stereotype I've ever had about prisons, just seeing the whole thing. And Kandyce, so you've had 18 years of warming up, it's like you've kind of, what's your long-term vision here?
Yeah.
What do you see evolving next?
Well, I just, wish with all my heart and hope that this program, I have said to the men many times over the years, long after all of us are gone and other people step in to take our place, that this program will still be here. Because the needs of people who are facing the end of their life, don't change over the years. Healthcare models may change, the system may change, but the needs that all of us have as we face end of life really don't change. We need support, we need someone to love us and care about us and be concerned about us, help manage our symptoms. Those needs do not change. And so this program is so valuable for so many reasons to the entire facility. And it's given these men just such an awareness of what their potential is, the caregivers. And it's given the men who receive the incredible love and attention of the caregivers that sense of peace in a life that may not have ever experienced peace before. You know, I've done a lot of very interesting things in my life, but this program is one of the most profound programs I have ever done.
Well, there's nothing more to say after that. Thank you for your fantastic work in conceiving and shepherding this throughout the years, being a steward for so many. I am here with Steve Clark just after an amazing speech that he just gave that everybody here was moved by. Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you to have you here.
Thank
so
you.
Good to be meeting you. Steve, in that speech that you just gave, you spoke so deeply about your personal process of growth through recovery and through the hospice program here in the prison. Can you tell me just really for yourself how long that has been unfolding for you?
Since I came in 2007, I've been on a journey to try to figure out and understand, as I spoke about,
Right.
kind of what caused the behaviors and what caused my addiction, so I didn't have to repeat these things over again.
Right. And through the hospice program, you spoke about, I think it was on December 7th, with one of your people here, Mike.
Yeah,
And you talked about feeling love open up for you. on
absolutely.
that. Yeah. Say just a little bit more about that now, just kind of personally here.
Well, when, sitting in the room with Mike and being with a man that was so vibrant and so loving and so caring, just so open to having us be there, care for him, being there and caring for him, it just allowed me an opportunity to really get outside of myself in a way that I've never been outside of myself before. And by him allowing to share that most intimate moment at the time of death with me, I don't know, sincerely, it was the best way I can describe it. It was like, as he passed, his soul and his spirit went through my heart. It's the only way I can really describe it to you. And it was almost like the flow of oxytocin and endorphins and just love, absolute pure love opened up.
And for you, what I get is that was a transformative experience that kind of steered your path in a certain direction now.
Yeah, absolutely.
One that you feel is not changing for you.
It's not changing, no.
So I'm going to be talking to the warden later on, and it strikes me you have a very enlightened warden here.
Yeah.
I was amazed at his perspectives, actually. And so this is a program, it seems to me, that would benefit prisons all over the country.
Absolutely. And not only prisons, it would benefit any institution, or it would benefit, I know it's out there in society, but if more people got involved with it and we started caring for people like we cared for them at the time of their birth,
Yes.
and we start looking at human beings as vulnerable people that need love and care and compassion at the time of death, we'd create a better place for everybody.
Yes. I also get that, I think it struck me as I was listening to your talk, that when we're dominated by the traumas that occurred to us, we kind of lose our individuality, and that the more that you're opening up, the more that you're discovering your authentic self.
That's right. That's right.
Right. And through the program with Kandyce and what you guys have been doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The more I get outside, with hospice work, the more I get outside of myself, and
Right.
the more that I'm seeing you, and seeing the patients, you know, the less I'm dealing with my own stuff, if that makes any sense to you. So what I said at the end is, for me to be able to provide that care and that comfort for people, I had to find that within myself first.
Right.
And by doing some work, and that was the recovery work that I spoke about, by doing that recovery work, I was able to find peace and love and comfort in myself, which allows me to provide that for other people.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Steve, anything else you want to say about all this in closing here?
No, I'm just so overwhelmed and grateful for the experience, and I'm so thankful to Kandyce Powell and everything she's done for us here at the prison.
Right.
I'm grateful that you're involved now, and grateful that you have an interest in our program, and so grateful that you're involved in this work as well, because I know the power of that, and the power and it's the way it can change our hearts and change our minds and change our souls. So thank you.
Wow, that's a beautiful thing. Thank you, man. Thank you, man. We're going to be talking with Robert Payzant now. Paco. He gave a fantastic speech this morning, and I have the pleasure of sitting with him here, and I've met him once previously. Paco, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So to me, in our first meeting, listening to you today, you embody what I see as the beauty of this program that's going on here. How many years have you been involved in a program now?
I began training 6 years ago this September.
And you've been, you said, with 5 men at the time.
5 men that have actually taken their last breath on my shift, and multiple other men.
Yeah, and it's not just about last breath, it's about the whole process leading up to.
No, exactly. We had, like one gentleman, he was actually direct hospice care for 6 months. We had another gentleman who was palliative care up until the time he needed direct hospice care for 6 years.
Wow.
You know, so yeah, we've some people have their stay in the infirmary has been shorter than others, and some people have been there for a long time, years, and we've seen people run the gamut on for going from complete rational, calm selves to paranoid, afraid, delusional, you know, suffering from dementia, of course, losing all their bodily functions, needing complete care, you know, so yeah, I've seen it all.
And to be clear, this isn't just sitting next to the bedside. You guys also get very involved in nursing care.
Oh, we do hands-on care, absolutely. We do pedicare and everything under the instruction and under the watchful eye of the nurses, because of insurance issues with the company that runs the nurses. I mean, they have to be present. Well, yeah, we do bed baths. We change people. We clean them up. We do everything that we can to try to make them physically, emotionally, and spiritually comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, and whatever that takes, we're willing to do it.
Yeah. You spoke very movingly about nobody should die alone.
Right.
Tell me about that for you.
Well, I think as a prisoner, I can articulate better than most people the fear of dying alone. Most of our inmates already have an attitude of feeling like you're marginalized. We all have our own history out there, but we come to prison and we're already in a position where we're separated from society. We're separated from our family. And I'm not putting anything out there that we don't deserve the punishments that were given to us, right? But the reality is we're still separated. And so when you're already alone and you know how bad that feels, the idea of actually dying alone is just incomprehensible to me, you know. And as I've grown up in this system, I've almost got 30 years in this prison. And so as I've seen people die and approaching death, my attitude has changed immensely, because before I ignored it. And as I get older and more in touch with my own frailties, it's like, oh, that could happen to me. And I don't want to die alone. I don't want my epitaph to be coulda, woulda, shoulda, didn't, and so we died alone.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be surrounded by people that love me.
Wow.
You know, and that doesn't mean they have to have had known me for decades. inmates, but they see me and they see my spirit and they want to be there. And so obviously I want to be that, you know, what they call it, a conduit or an instrument for other people. You know, that's what I want to be. And I feel comfortable doing it. I feel at ease doing it. I've never experienced someone else's death in hospice as a bad thing. It's always been quite moving. It's been a learning experience. It's been a blessing, but never a bad thing, because I feel like I did my job.
Yeah. Would you say that for someone to aspire to a beautiful death is a reasonable thing to do? Or is that a corny thing, or however one would characterize it?
I don't think it's corny at all. Unfortunately, we live in a world that views death through a lens of fear. It's the thing that we keep running from. That's why medicine has advanced so much, to try to take us further and further away from the death experience. You know, how long are people living today?
Yeah, right.
You know, so obviously we live in a culture, you know, especially in the United States, that says, hey, I don't want to die. You know, I want to avoid it as possible. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to experience. I just want to put it in the back room. Yeah. You know, so, but being in my position, death is a beautiful thing. It's the conclusion of an appointed task. Whatever that task that's been assigned to all of us is different, and it's unique for each individual. But when you get to the end of it, that's what you've done. You've run your race, you know, and to have people there to celebrate that with you, and encourage you to speak about it if you're able to, and share it with them. That's what it's about.
Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful way to hold it.
Yeah.
So Kandyce's program, a lot of it, the core of it seems to me, is about you getting in touch with your authentic self. And as your buddy Steve talked about the expression of love and compassion and service. Has this program helped you feel your authentic self?
Oh, absolutely. It's helped me discover myself. It's ironic in the sense, I mean, they talk about it being service work. And you'll hear some people, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, talk about it's all about the patient. It's all about the patient. The reality is, it's not all about the patient. It's about me coming to a place where I'm comfortable being me, so I can do good service work for somebody else. Because if I'm not in a healthy place myself, what I have to offer somebody else probably isn't all that good and supportive. So no, it's about realizing who you are, realizing, like you said, your authentic self and who you are and who you're meant to be.
I love that you said that. I'm in 100% agreement with you. If you were able to give a message to other prison systems or wardens throughout the country, what would you want to say to them? And I want you to say it right into that camera right there.
I think what I've learned through the process of doing, like I said, almost 30 years in prison, the most important thing to me is invest in the human being, in the humanity of another human being. We're all much better than the worst choice we ever made. And if we can just look at each other in that lens, we can see each other as worthy. And that's the whole point.
There it is. That's the whole point. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Oh, man. Thank you. Now we're going to be talking with Leo Hylton. Leo has been a hospice volunteer for 3 years now. And this is a man I'll say it, I fell in love with the guy when I first met him in the 3-hour class that I attended. This is a brilliant, compassionate man. Leo, thanks for sitting down.
Thank you.
This has been a huge day. I'm emotionally drained. I don't know if you got anything left, but where are you right now, just kind of having gone through this whole day, and you have a perspective on the hospice itself? What's on your mind right now?
Well, truthfully, right now I'm shifting back. My mind is in the infirmary right now.
Yeah.
Yep. I got a gentleman down there who needs assistance getting to and from the shower. You know, needs help with balance in the shower. So myself and Sean, we're getting ready to go down there.
Okay.
So I've kind of already made that shift back in. You know, I just got done saying goodbye to my family. You know, being able to say I'll see you in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, and that felt really good. You know, and I'm just real thankful to be able to go through this conference again. to listen to the educated people come in and, speak on their experience that they go through in the world, and then to have them come in and tell me a lot of what I already kind of know.
Yeah.
From experience, from dealing with the men in here, and just from going through this whole process, and it's really enriching. It is draining, very much so.
Leo, do you mind how old are you?
I am 27.
You're 27. So can you tell me your 3 years involved in this as a man, as a developing man, how being involved in this, how has it affected you?
It has allowed me to be the man that I know God wants me to be. And I'm still growing. I still have a lot of work to do. I still got a lot of things that need to be cleaned up in my heart. But hospice has really facilitated a growth in me to be able to show love and care and compassion for other men. Because that's something that's been difficult for me, going all the way back to my childhood, dealing with my father. And as I got older, I understand that he loves me, or that he loved me. He passed. But to have that outward showing of emotion, to another man, and have it be genuine.
Yeah.
To genuinely be able to tell another man that I love him.
Yeah.
That's not my family. That's
Yeah.
not my blood family.
Yeah.
And to show compassion, to be able to get in touch with, the softer parts of myself that I shut off, that I deliberately harden my heart towards, in order to self-preserve.
Yeah. So I have to imagine you have a warden who is a huge believer in redemption. I have to believe that that's nothing but an upside for our society and overall for a young man that has to experience incarceration and pay a price for whatever. But it's basically empathy training, this whole program.
Absolutely.
And,
Through and through.
And that compassion and love you're talking about, it's not just towards your patients. I've been watching all you guys interact with each other today, and the thing that struck me was, goes totally against my stereotypes about prison, you're all like real affectionate with each other in an authentic, genuine way, not homophobic, nothing, just like brotherly love.
Yeah.
You guys are like a band of brothers.
And that's new too.
Yeah.
That's very new, that's very unique to this group. There's only 2 other people outside of this group in this entire prison that I'm like that with. One is my foster brother, the other one is my spiritual father, the man who introduced me to Christ. That I've known for 7 years.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I don't play with people like that. I don't joke with people like that. I don't hug on people like that.
Yeah.
I'm very almost standoffish.
Yeah.
Because to build that level of trust with me, where I know that I can play with you and joke with you and hug on you because you're my friend, or we're building a friendship. To build that level of trust takes time. And that's what it is trust, and that's very lacking here. So it's very unique, it's very special to this group.
Yeah. So let me ask you a little bit of a hard question then. Because you got your band of brothers, and you come into the classes together, and you guys deep dive, intellectual, philosophical, emotional, practical nursing, the whole gamut, and then you're out in population. How is that impossible, hard? How do you carry it? What do you do with it? Because not everybody there is going to meet you in the same...
No, but the hospice training that we have is tailored to this environment. Kandyce does a fantastic job at reminding us that not everybody you meet has or developed the same aptitudes that you have had an opportunity to learn. They don't understand most times, not everybody understands what presence is. Not everybody understands or has developed the ability to see you, to hear you, and to be present with you. Yeah. So understand that when you go in, when we deal with, difficult COs, when we deal with, other prisoners here who are completely immersed in the accepted community here, of, for lack of a better word, just ignorance. Just real. There's a lot of disrespect. Violence is, the answer, and it's
Never far from being some kind of reality.
yeah. So that's something that we have to deal with on a daily basis, and it is heavy, but it also helps so much in dealing with other people in order to help me stay out of all that.
Yeah. That's what gives me the deepest respect for what you guys are doing here, is that you're developing your own compassionate consciousness and the capacity for love in an environment that doesn't always support that. So you have my deepest respect, as does all the guys that I've met here. Anything you want to say in closing?
I just want to thank you, on a personal level, for taking the time to come into the class, to give us that chance, and to bring your walls down, to let your walls down, to be open and honest with us in the class of who you are, and to be willing to accept us for who we are and see us for who we now are rather than who we were that let us in here. So I want to thank you for that.
All right, man. Good luck to you.
Thank you, and you take good care.
Thank you.
Right.
We're going to be talking with the senior Maine State Prison Hospice Volunteer. He's been involved in this program for a long time. His name's Steve Carpentier. Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to be able to speak to you. Hey, Steve, this has been a huge day, a huge emotional day. So much has come out here. Where are your thoughts right now? What would you like to express? And how long have you been involved in this program?
I've been involved in this program for over 17 years. So I've known
Almost right from the beginning?
right from the very beginning, when Kandyce first came into Thomaston and did an introduction to the program. She brought, it was an informational thing that she brought in and shared what hospice was all about, and I've been involved. And I've been involved with Diane Checky back then, maybe for 19 years, when she brought the grief and loss group in. The very first grief and loss group in the prison, Diane brought in. Yeah. And I'm very grateful that somebody took the time and seen the need to come in and share their compassion for their fellow human beings with us.
You've seen an awful lot over these years. You've seen many men, many volunteers, many men died.
I've seen many deaths here, yes, very many men die by themselves before the program, but I've also experienced being in a room with not only the men that have passed here, but their families. Some of their families, the men that do have families, been allowed to come and spend the time with them too, and we get the opportunity to spend the time with their family and share with their family and be their strength too in their loss of loved one.
I get it. Oh, Steve, would you say that a program like this within a prison has a positive effect on the overall population beyond just the people who are either volunteers or receiving death comfort?
Has a very positive effect in here, not only on the other prisoners, but on the staff, because some of the staff share their experiences with the loss of their loved ones in the hospice program outside, and they encourage it here. And a lot of the guys here that are not in the program that we see on a daily basis, they thank us for what we're being what we do, and they tell us that they couldn't do it, but thank us for doing what we do here.
I got it.
A lot of them. Yeah.
You know, I didn't realize there were so many people until I saw everybody here in the group today. I have to imagine that the way that you guys are carrying yourselves also has some kind of effect in the population.
It has a very positive effect in the population. The way we carry here, it has the ripple effect. They see what we do, and it goes out to other programs that are involved. Like we got men that go in mental health now because of the hospice program. We got men that go out and mentor in other areas of the prison because of our hospice program.
Oh, fantastic.
It's
right.
kind of offset of the program.
Right, a lot of offshoots.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been incredibly impressive to me, just you know, first me attending your class group, that I got to say I walked out of that with my mind blown. Just I was like, whoa, whatever stereotypes, totally shattered. You guys are just doing amazing work here.
And I want to thank you for coming to our group and sharing what you did. You were very open, and you shared it. Very rarely do we have somebody come from the outside and share and be as emotionally involved as you were with us that day. And we see that. We see the honesty, and we appreciate that. And that's a gift that you gave to us.
Wow.
And yeah, it's
well,
a gift.
thanks, Steve. I'm more humbled by you guys.
Yeah.
But just in closing here, to me, it would seem that other prisons. So I think you have a very impressive warden.
Yes. Yeah.
His talk today was astounding to me, really, and his thoughts about redemption, about not doing dead time, and him. Of course, this program was going before he arrived, but he supports it very vigorously now. I'm assuming you think that other prisons would benefit by being able to incorporate this sort of program.
They benefit in what we do as volunteers. We alleviate the medical department here. We put we volunteer a lot of our time, and we're more than willing to do that. So we're freeing up the medical staff here to go where they may be needed someplace else.
Yeah.
So, and what we do don't cost nothing.
Right.
And what. So it's,
right. Actually, that was one of the things that struck me when I first met your group. In the first 10 minutes of discussion, because I was a registered nurse, I've done a lot of bedside care. I thought in the first 10 minutes, I was like, oh, these guys are really for real. They're in there doing hands-on care, not just sitting around being good company.
That's another part. See, we're hospice trained, but we're PSS certified too by the state. We went and we did I probably did like 150 hours.
Wow.
But we did our 50 hours training, and we took the test for the state. So we're personal support service. So we do palliative care, besides our hospice. So that kind of expands, and they can use us more to free up their time. Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say in closing, Steve?
No, I just want to thank you, and I want to thank all the people that were here today and support our program, and for sharing their life stories with us too.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right, brother. Good luck to you, man.
Yeah, thank
Good
you.
luck to you.
Thank you.
We're going to be speaking with the chaplain for the Maine State Prison and the Bolduc facility, Kevan Fortier. Kevin, how long have you been a chaplain here?
I've been a chaplain here for 4 years.
4 years. Okay, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm emotionally drained. This has been a huge day. You know these men well.
I do.
Boy, we had some stuff here today that just blasted my heart open. You live with this. Talk to me about your perspective from your role here as chaplain.
So I know the men fairly well here. By name, by first name. There are a few things within this facility that are truly life-changing on a positive role. Hospice is probably the number one in my book. The things that Kandyce brings in here is transformational, changes their lives, changes their belief, moves and motivates their hearts. A lot of the men here used to be what some people have considered takers, and now they're sacrificial and they're givers. These men, before they came in, experienced trauma, experienced grief, experienced all the things that everybody else experiences, and they experience it and re-experience it here on a regular daily basis. But with positive programming and with this hospice, it's not about programs for the men. It's about learning how to live with integrity, learning how to give back to others. I've had many of them sit in my office, and we've just shared. They've sat with men as they've passed away, and they help give back to them a little bit of life, a little bit of dignity that maybe has been taken away from them. Every one of these men comes with their own story. Some of the songs that you may have heard, I don't know if they sang Rainbows and Butterflies. There's a former hospice volunteer here who's no longer here. He left, but he wrote that about one of his own pains and his own children. But these men give back, so much of themselves to the facility, to the people here. And they do it in a sacrificial manner. No matter what happens, no matter what comes against them, they respond differently than they would have years ago. So there's a huge change.
I see that the camaraderie among them is a hugely uplifting force. It's not just what they're experiencing with death and dying, but the brotherhood among them seems to me just their comfort with friendship and with expressing love to each other.
Sure.
It's profound.
It is profound.
You don't expect to see it in a prison.
You know, probably prison is, in many people's minds, the last place that you would expect to see, that personhood. What does it look like to have that personhood? And a lot of people are afraid or terrified to come in here, but after they leave and they meet with these men and they see who these men are, they're no longer labeled, they're no longer inmates, prisoners, God doesn't look at a person through their titles, He sees their heart. And if you see these guys and you see the love that they have for each other.
Right.
And, I've had a lot of the men that, because of the relationship that they share with me, that I share with them, they'll come into my office and say, "Chap, I love you," and then they'll lay some hard truth on me, and I'm like,
yeah.
But that's the relationship, and there is a camaraderie here. There is a kind of a brotherhood and a fellowship that they share among each other that the other men that aren't part of hospice don't share because they're not involved in that.
Right.
And Kandyce brings a lot of that in here, and the deputy warden and the warden in the facility really are seeking to continue to pursue that because it builds into those guys that worth and that value, that may have been stripped away from them.
Right.
So.
Right, and that opportunity for redemption that
the warden talks about.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right, exactly. Do you see, because you have them all eventually talking to you, and watching today, I see the high regard with which they hold you, and the affection actually with which they hold you. Do you feel that the consciousness that they're developing here affects the rest of the population when they're out in population, or is it just among them?
No, absolutely. It's these guys are what I call legacy livers. They leave this legacy, they lead it, and they when they're out in the facility, they're leaders.
Right.
And the people see. And Mr. Picardi stood up, and he's not part of hospice. He's working the soundboard, and he's very impressed and amazed at what happens here. So he hasn't been here very long, and he's leaving soon. But in his own words, they've inspired him to want to do amazing things as well. So they're out in the community here. This is their community. This is where they eat, sleep, and do everything.
Right.
And the guys that see them recognize that they're not the same person they used to be, and that they're growing forward, and they're learning how to live, how to love, how to show emotion, and how to be that whole person. And a lot of those guys see that and they want it. They want the same thing that these guys have. So
right.
Absolutely it impacts the community.
Right. So it would seem that if in another community where there's other correctional facilities, if some forward-thinking warden there was able to bring a program in, it's not a big budget item, I don't imagine, for them. It's all volunteers, and there needs some leadership from the outside hospice world to come in to teach it. But it seems to me like an obvious thing that should spread around to other prisons. Would you say that?
I agree. Kandyce Powell has been doing inside of this facility as well as Thomaston before we came here 16 or 17 years.
Right.
She gives of her time. She's not getting paid.
Right.
The training that these men get, the personal certifications that they get from the state are recognized throughout the state. That's not being paid for within the facility, so the cost is non-existent.
Right.
And the volunteers that come in from the outside community to help teach these men, personal care, support types of things. The only thing that it costs the facility is time.
Right.
Finding the time, finding the place. And this warden, being forward thinker, recognizing the value in this particular ministry.
Yeah.
Recognizes and understands, as do many of us, that we can never be too busy to build into the lives of other people. And like you said, it's not about just being around the death or the dying or the grief, but it's about living and teaching people how to really live.
Yeah.
So the cost is
Right.
just that time.
Right, right.
And, so that's powerful.
Yeah, that is powerful and well said.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to say in closing? It's been such a huge day. I hardly know what to say. Anything you want to say in closing?
These men have motivated me. They teach me something more than I've ever taught them. And a lot of people, like I said earlier, are afraid to come here because of, what's associated with, prison. But when they see these men and they see who they are and recognize they're better or they're more than the choices that they've made, the worst choices that they've made, and that these men are somebody that I would be proud to call brother, and somebody that I trust with, sharing the story. And we just create the culture here for the context, or the context for the culture here to change. And the warden has been a change agent here. Who was it? Was it Mahatma Gandhi who said we have to be the change we want to see in the world? That's what these guys are doing.
That they are doing that, absolutely.
So they inspire others to be that change as well. And I think that if more of us led by an example, like we see these guys doing, the change would be amazing.
Wow.
So.
All right. All right. Chaplain Kevan Fortier. Kevin, thank you very much.
Here's to the woman who has given me the courage to live my life serving those in need. Kandyce, you made me aware of my capacity to care and become the man I was always meant to be. I thank you all. I surely do.